Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, is Indiana facing a venture capital crisis? The winner of the Indy Startup Challenge is growing. The Indy Chamber sets its goals for the year. A well-known Indiana attraction adds a makerspace. Gleaners beefs up efforts to bring fresh produce to the hungry. Trendiana looks at Indiana's best meats and cheeses, and our Insiders panel takes on the week's top stories. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Alos Ventures has been the most active venture capital firm in Indiana for the past 2 years, providing resources to companies like Lessonly, Octave, and BidPal. However, early-stage capital remains a critical gap in funding for many of the state's promising startup companies. Co-founder and managing director Don Aquilano joined host Gary Dick to talk about the challenge and potential solutions.
I want to put some context around this because I think you arrived in Indiana in 2000, and as you look back and then look to today, as you look at deal flow, at the tech ecosystem, at angel investing, all of those are pointing in the right direction.
Absolutely. It's like night and day. When I first got here, we had the benefit of a software artistry success story, but everything else was very nascent. If I fast forward to where we are today, with everything that sort of TechPoint and BioCrossroads, the angel community, even the university sort of tech transfer programs have significantly matured, and with the help of the state, with respect to 21 Fund, VC tax credits, the help with Elevate, that ecosystem is actually very, very strong.
Yeah.
Layer on the fact that we've got tech working spaces with the speakeasies and the launch indies. We're in a great place. We're in a great place from a support and infrastructure perspective.
But you and others are concerned in particular, very specifically about early stage capital and the lack of that. Give us your take on the environment right now.
Absolutely. We have a bit of a crisis with respect to Series A and Series B, early stage VC funding. Alos, we're out of the market right now, so we've just hit our harvest phase, and so we hope to raise a new fund this year, but right now, we may be actually at an all-time low with respect to available capital from local investors in the state, and that's the missing link. We've got everything else. And so, there's a concern amongst the community where that needs to be addressed.
Give us an idea of how important, for those who may not be as familiar, but the lack of early stage funding and what it can mean. You've participated with a number of companies, Lessonly, Octave, as we mentioned before. What can that early stage capital mean to a company?
Great. Well, with respect to Lessonly, you just mentioned it. That's a company we were the first institutional investor in, and that allowed the company to gain a serious set of milestones, which all of a sudden enabled it to attract VC, both regionally, but as well as from Boston with respect to OpenView. And now they're sort of they're on a tear, and they're not going to miss a beat with respect to success. A lot of companies, the next set of Lessonlys are challenged now because they don't have anywhere to turn. Yeah,
and you're saying without that early stage capital, some of these perhaps potentially positive companies, they can maybe wither away.
So one of two things happens. They either die in the vine altogether, or their growth is absolutely suboptimal and they get leapfrogged by those companies in the region or nationally that are properly capitalized.
Lack of VC funds based in the state as well. I know you and others have been very supportive of the state's effort with the Next Level Fund.
Yeah, so we are very excited about the governor's leadership on this initiative. They're addressing sort of in bullseye fashion the critical gap here, which is venture capital formation in the state. And the intention of that legislation is to see that venture capital funds locally, regionally, that are very active in the state are actually getting properly capitalized themselves to in turn invest in those early stage companies that are in desperate need.
As we wrap up here, in your view, can Indiana turn this thing around? I mean,
Absolutely.
Can it happen?
Absolutely. This has been done before. This has been done in Utah. This has been done in Michigan. This has been done in Ohio, different flavors, and it's had a significant impact. There's a long-standing, there's 12 local venture capital firms in Ohio. There's 13 or 14 now in Michigan.
Okay.
And it's created a number of great early stage ventures that are growing nicely and creating great sustainable jobs.
All right, great perspective on early stage capital and challenges right now here in Indiana. Don Aquilano, Alos Ventures. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to you soon.
Still to come, the Indy Chamber details 2017 job numbers and 2018 goals, and a popular attraction adds a makerspace. But first, a tech company offering a food and beverage industry staffing platform is expanding in Indianapolis. SnapShift, which won the inaugural Indy Startup Challenge in 2016, plans to invest more than $400,000 into its Indy headquarters and add 40 jobs over the next 2 years. Co-founder Stephanie Corliss and Thor Wood discussed the on-demand worker platform with Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond.
Well, co-founder Thor Wood told me this week he came up with the idea a few years ago while living in Florida, formed a business plan on paper in 72 hours, and then presented it to his business partner, Stephanie Corliss. Within a year, the duo decided there was no better market than Indianapolis to turn SnapShift into a reality.
We were looking at, from Nashville to, Denver, Austin, Portland, even Las Vegas. Looking at hospitality market and tech market, right? And but Indy, whatever metric we were looking at, Indy was always at the top as number one or like top 3, top 4. And finally, we made a vote and said, let's go to Indy. Let's give it a shot.
So what exactly is SnapShift?
SnapShift is an online platform, both mobile and web-based now, that allows bars and restaurants and other food and beverage establishments to connect with qualified professionals on demand. So busser, server, dishwasher, cook.
SnapShift is the solution. It is the tool that you need to have in your pocket or on your desktop, as a manager. It takes moments, 30 seconds to post a shift that needs to be covered. And you're going to have a qualified pro show up and get it done. It's a no-brainer.
In the months prior to SnapShift's soft launch in September, Corliss and Woods canvassed several bars and restaurants in downtown Indianapolis to gauge their interest, and it paid off.
We hoofed it in Indy, zero marketing budget, no true, anything. We're talking pennies. And we were focusing on specific Indianapolis, like a set radius around Monument Circle. And it started spreading. And this is back in June. We were just trying to get some awareness.
We were kind of, tired of waiting, so we launched it with a few venues on board and, about 100 service professionals when we first launched live. And started filling shifts, tweaking the system. We've had half a dozen or more updates since then to our app, which has definitely helped us grow. In the month of December alone, we had 100% growth from November in terms of professional downloads, venue downloads, and shifts being placed and filled.
And demand is growing beyond Indianapolis. The app has been downloaded in 42 states and has even garnered international interest.
People from Belgium and South Africa and Australia are like, hey mate, when are you coming here? And it's like, well, as soon as possible.
You definitely have to take a leap of faith at some point just to make it this far, be launched and have the support behind us, filling shifts, talking about the next market. It's been a long road, and I'm just glad to be here.
Wood and Corliss tell me they will be expanding into Bloomington, Greater Lafayette, Muncie, and at least 4 additional major cities outside of the state in 2018, most likely Midwestern cities. Gary?
Another great example of innovation right here in Indiana. Thanks, Mary Rachel, as always.
Absolutely.
Later in the podcast, Conner Prairie is looking to spark creativity, and Gleaners is growing its efforts to get fresh produce to the hungry. But now, the Indy Chamber is reporting more than 15,000 new job commitments and nearly $2 billion in capital investment from relocation and expansion projects last year. The group has also unveiled its legislative priorities for this year, including more pre-K education access and a higher cigarette tax. Chief Policy Officer Mark Fisher came in studio with more.
Let's get to those numbers first. The Indy Partnership releasing numbers that were 40% higher, job total more than 15,000, 40% higher than the previous year. What's driving that?
Well, I think we have a lot of regional collaboration with our elected officials. We have a great economic development strategy. We have everybody's coalescing around a vision for what our region does, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that, especially in the tech sector, the explosive growth, and I hope that we'll see that continue in years to come.
Yeah, we'll learn more about those job numbers and investment numbers in the week ahead as well. Let's talk about the legislative agenda, because you mentioned technology, and certainly tech policy, talent. Those are all things that go directly to the tech industry and growing it.
Absolutely. You know, we've done a lot in the past 12 years to really stabilize, strong fiscal management, strong leadership from both the legislature and the governor's office. But those are a lot of, kind of base level issues, and now it's time to tackle some of the tougher challenges around workforce development and alignment, cleaning up some language around taxation on software as a service, looking at autonomous vehicles and how we can be not just embrace them on our streets, but be an R&D hub for those as well.
Yeah, so. You talk also about a priority on making it a, quote, inclusive climate for a diverse workforce.
Absolutely. We have a lot of job growth, a lot of wealth creation. We got to make sure that we are providing opportunities for people to fully participate in the economy. It means addressing some of those barriers around transportation and training and housing. But also we've got to be a place where people want to live, and that means we've got to be opening and welcoming. And I think we're still dealing with some of the challenges of previous years, but we feel confident that we're going to make some positive movement on some of those issues.
When you talk about issues like tech policy and software as a service issues, do you sense this is a non-budget writing year? Obviously, I mean, do you sense there'll be some forward movement there?
Yeah, I think you heard the governor say, we can't let up. We can't let up on the gas, and we got to maintain that momentum. I think that's true. It's it's tough in a short 10-week non-budget session to tackle big issues, but I think it's important that we seize on the momentum and we make changes and really tackle big, tough issues that in the legislature, even without a budget session.
You talk about a healthier workforce. You'd like to see the minimum age for smoking be increased.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about workforce development and skills alignment, but we also have to be thinking about the health of our workforce, the cost of an unhealthy workforce, the loss of productivity. And one way we can tackle that right now is to increase the cigarette tax, use some of that money to tackle the opioid epidemic, make sure that it's plowing into public health and public safety. But ultimately, another thing we can do is raise the cigarette age to 21. Studies have shown that you're very unlikely to start smoking if you don't start before 21.
Well, be very quickly here, pre-K getting a lot of support from the business, private sector around the state. You'd like to see that expanded pre-K.
Yeah, it's a non-budget year, so this is kind of about keeping that issue at the forefront and really preparing for the budget year next year.
Mark Fisher, Chief Policy Officer at the Indy Chamber. Thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
You can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, Gleaners doubles down on getting fresh produce to those who need it, and a look at the best meat and cheeses throughout the state. But first, a new year-round exhibit at Conner Prairie in Fishers aims to spark visitors' creativity. Construction on the Makesmith workshop began in November. Chief Programs Officer Richard Cooper talked about the new program on our weekly Eye on Education segment.
I mentioned in this makers movement, if you will, a lot of attention, certainly here in Indianapolis and throughout the state of Indiana and the country. And this really picks up on that whole thing.
It does, and the thing I'll say is, Conner Prairie has been involved in making since our beginning. So this is just continuing that evolution. Usually you would see people out in Prairie Town and around the site engaging with different tools and pieces throughout Indiana's past. Now we're going to take that and break down that barrier and allow our guests to be involved in that making.
All right, let's talk about the experience, this Makesmith workshop experience that is really targeted for both children and very young children, right, and adults as well.
Yeah, this is for all ages. There are different techniques that we will use. From the first month, we have textiles. So you will be sewing, making pillows, making a community quilt that we will have at Conner Prairie. There'll also be some things you can take with you throughout this experience.
So this will be an evolutionary kind of thing that will go all the way through the process.
Yeah, so we will continue and evolve. We will continue to look at ways that our guests engage with the site. We'll increase the difficulty of making as our guests engage with the site. But we'll start with textiles, then we'll move to wood making, and then we'll also do some metal making. So it will evolve each month or bi-monthly.
Again, it's something that is geared to kids and to adults on the young side. How young are we talking?
So we can go as young as preschool. We had some 2 and 3-year-olds in there today engaging with different ways. So it really depends on the type of experience that families want to have in there. But we can also do evening events where we have guests engage in more difficult building. So we can make all kinds of different things with them.
The connection that you talk about with this makers movement, but also STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, which is a huge push certainly here around the state of Indiana. There's a real STEM connection here too.
Correct, there is. This is continuing the work that we started with Create Connect, which the Create Connect is where the Make Smith workshop actually is in the main building of Conner Prairie. And we'll continue that STEM legacy, getting people to think critically. We're going to encourage curiosity and really foster learning throughout this experience to continue the mission of Conner Prairie through this.
The mission of Conner Prairie too, you want to attract visitors and get more visitors.
Yes.
And certainly the attendance numbers have been good. Have been positive. How important, as you look at an exhibit like this Make Smith workshop, is it to driving attendance as continuing to find these relevant exhibits?
I think it's very important for museums to look for new opportunities, to continue to allow visitors to come in and engage in new ways. I think this Make Smith workshop is part of that evolution and getting new opportunities and immersive experiences where, it's not about museums just telling visitors how to engage. It's really opening doors and allowing for them to engage the way they want through individualized experiences.
Yeah, final question for you in terms of the Make Smith workshop. This is a year-long thing. Do you anticipate this really being a permanent feature in Conner Prairie?
It will be. This is in many ways the next phase of our making. We tested with visitors, learned what they wanted to experience in spaces like this. We created make and takes on the grounds. Now this space allows us to create a more year-round experience and bring in new opportunities on a monthly and bi-monthly basis.
All right, it's the Make Smith workshop at Conner Prairie, brand new exhibit, already receiving some rave reviews. Richard Cooper, thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Later in the podcast, Trendiana puts a focus on creative butchers throughout the state, and our Insiders panel weighs in on the top stories of the week. But now, Gleaners is expanding its produce distribution thanks to its new regional processing center. The facility supplies more than 40 food banks in 7 states, including Indiana. In all, it means an additional 20 million pounds of fresh food a year for people who need it. CEO John Elliott joined health contributor Barb Lewis in the business of health.
So first, a quick update. How is this produce processing center doing?
Well, it's actually doing very well. We followed 6 months of pilot with a full launch November 1st, and the number of 39 food banks in 7 states is growing. But also, we're one of the customers. And so this has become a great opportunity for our 21 Indiana counties as well.
Okay, so talk a little bit about how this one processing center fits into your overall strategy at Gleaners.
Well, we have an overall strategy of feeding the most healthy, nutritious food we can to those who are hungry and are in line, so to speak. But we also are expanding our mission through collaboration and partnerships to do what we can to reduce the line and help solve the mix of poverty problems, us doing the hunger relief piece.
And so you also have a dietitian,
right.
You also have a clinic, so this real focus on health.
So as we really try to deal with the convergence of hunger and health, through partners, frankly. The hospitals are great partners and others. There are 3 concrete things that we've done in the last year to really address that. The Regional Produce Center is one. We've hired the first dietitian for a food bank in the state, and we're going to wear her out serving our 21 counties any way we can. And then also our partner, St. Vincent Health, has opened a clinic next to the food pantry in our building, and they're serving the same client population that we provide food to.
Okay, so it seems like food insecurity for the state of Indiana has always been a troubling problem for us, and we didn't get much traction. How will what you're doing now, especially with the fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe change that?
Well, we can, even if we don't move the needle on the number of people who are food insecure, and we certainly aspire to do that, we know we can make a difference on nutrition and wellness measures and have an impact on things like heart disease and diabetes and obesity and other health factors that, frankly, the state shouldn't be proud of our measures on.
Yeah. So the true impact on health then, I mean, can you track it? Is it something, I mean, it just seems logical that the more fresh fruits and vegetables someone eats, the better off they are.
Right. And that's a challenge for us. You know, Gleaners and other hunger relief organizations typically take a non-judgmental, not intrusive approach to those we serve, and we don't ask a lot of questions, and we don't gather a lot of data. We don't want to deter them from coming to us for help. However, as we work with health partners like the hospitals and others and local clinics, they do gather that information. So really, I would say our partners will take more of a share in measuring the health impact.
And it seems like for Gleaners, this two-pronged approach, like you said, with the partnerships, how have they been working? Feeding America is one of your partners?
Yes, well, we're actually one of 200 members of Feeding America across the country, and the strategy that I shared with us applies to them as well. We are really trying to do the best we can in the hunger relief mission space, but communicate and collaborate much better than we ever have with partners who can address any poverty challenge, not just health. It might be housing, employment, other things.
Okay, so when you look ahead to this year, what's Gleaners poised to do? Obviously, you had a great year last year, a lot of initiatives put in place. What are you looking for this year?
Well, on the produce side, certainly part of the challenge is just dealing with the volume. We went from 2 years ago 1 million pounds of produce to 4 million pounds last year, and we're going to distribute 9 million pounds in our 21 counties this year. So that alone is a daunting challenge. We also need to be helping raise the capacity of the local agencies. We work with 600 local agencies across our 21 counties alone, a mix of brick and mortar pantries, school pantries, mobile sites, backsack sites. They need to be able to raise their capacity, particularly around sharing perishable food.
Well, John Elliott, thank you so much for being our guest. It's always good to have you on the program, and best wishes.
Thank you very much.
Still to come, our weekly Insiders panel gives perspective on the week's top stories. But now, Indiana is home to many fun and creative butchers. In this month's Trendiana segment, we take a look at Hoosier-made meats and cheeses. Yelp Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith has some of the best from throughout the state.
More and more of these meats and cheeses, really cool meats and cheeses coming online, and really so Indiana doesn't have to look outside the state anymore to get quality products.
Yeah, these businesses are taking it to the next level, so now you can find these artisan products right at your back door.
Okay. Well, you're going to take us on a tour around the state.
Exactly.
Torchetti's is here in Indianapolis in the Fountain Square.
Yeah, right in Fountain Square. This business is going to be opening up in their space in the next few months. Right now you can find them wholesale, but they are taking the old world classic approach to charcuterie and meats. You're going to find their Smoke City hams. Their turkey is really well known, even taking a duck prosciutto. They're using all local farms from Indiana. You can go there, you can buy the product, but you can also sit down and have a sandwich once it opens here in the next few months.
Yeah, speaking of sandwiches, a sandwich shop here in Indianapolis. Oka, we're hearing a lot more about Oka because they're growing.
Yes, you're probably familiar with Smoking Goose and Goose the Market. This is now their third branch of the business, located in the heart of Sun King Brewing. A little sandwich shop there where you can find grab-and-go sausages, where they're getting really creative and pushing the envelope. Octopus, pheasant, salmon, and all of the sausages, really creating a whole meal experience at Sun King.
Yeah. Staying here in central Indiana in Zionsville, Traders Point Creamery. A lot of people have heard about that.
Yes, nationally known Traders Point Creamery. I've actually even seen them on the shelves in New York City at the airport. You're going to find their yogurts, their artisan cheeses. You can see it in the cases on site. They have great private spaces you can tour and see where the cows are red, grass-fed. It is a wonderful space and business.
Speaking of tours, we go to Northwest Indiana and Fair Oaks Farms, which is an unbelievable development. Yes. You really go cow to cheese. You can learn how it all happens.
Exactly. You cannot miss Fair Oaks Farms if you're going from Indy to Chicago, right there off the exit. And they are showing they have the dairy adventure experience where you can see where the cows are born, the whole birthing experience, and then sample the cheeses. And they're also known for their ice cream. So you can't leave without a little bit of both.
Yep, have done it, have tasted it. It's great stuff. Okay, let's go over to the eastern part, northeast part of the state, Amish country in Bern, and it's Swiss land cheese.
Yes, they are known for their grass-fed cows, a lot of different curd-style cheeses there, smoked, spreads, whole variety of styles, shredded. You can try a little bit of everything there, and they're known for doing it old world style.
Very good. National awards are coming to our next location in Zionsville, Tulip Tree Creamery, again, a popular
Yes,
spot.
really taking an educational approach at Tulip Tree. This business has been around since 2014. They are known for all of their wonderful cheeses, from the Snapdragon to their butters that you literally want to eat by the spoon. But they offer these cheese making classes where you can make your own queso blanco, mozzarella. Really great for team building. Really fun business.
Our final stop in eastern Indiana, Fountain City, Indiana, Fountain Acres Food, an Amish-owned grocery.
Yeah, you go in there and you're going to see the solar lights you expect from an Amish business. Sample all the cheeses that you're wanting to buy. They're known for their dill and their German cheeses. Really delicious, and sandwiches found there as well.
Awesome. Meats and cheeses, artisan meats and cheeses around the state. Brittany Smith, as always, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to you soon.
And finally, our latest Insiders panel joined host Gary Dick to offer perspectives on the week's top stories. This week's panel includes Genova's Executive Managing Director Larry Gigrich, Leadership Indianapolis CEO Christina Hale, and Women's Fund of Central Indiana Executive Director Jennifer Pope Baker.
We begin with nonstop flights. We seem to talk about that a lot, or have been talking about it a lot recently. More and more nonstop flights. This week, 2 seasonal destinations, Charleston, South Carolina, Sarasota, Florida. Larry, but as we were just talking off camera, the airport has really had a strategy of putting the leisure destinations in there, but also mixing in some business spots.
Yeah, for sure. Mario Rodriguez and his team over the last 3 years have done an outstanding job of adding both business location flights and leisure travel flights. And I think the important thing is, in a time when you've seen a lot of other airports lose flights, we've continued to gain. And I think that says something for the health of our market.
You, looking back 20 years ago or so, because I know you were very actively involved in the the Mayor's Technology Task Force, and certainly direct flight, nonstop flights, big issue back then.
Absolutely.
How important is it to see the change that has happened?
Yeah, it helps tremendously, and I think it's partly it creates more opportunity for us economically going forward, but the other part of it is it helps get that direct connection to either where the capital sources are or where those innovative businesses are, and that they're looking at other locations, including Central Indiana.
Yeah, it's about business, but it's also about talent. You know, we live in a global economy. We want people who participate in that economy to want to live here, and that means being able to get on a plane with your family to go places easily as well, and anything we can do to build out our infrastructure so it's not just this redundant system of roads and rail, but air is really important.
Governor Holcomb and the administration has been supportive of more nonstop flights, and this week the governor had a State of the State address, his second State of the State. Jennifer, as you look at that, a number of topics, focus areas, clearly workforce development, education tied to workforce, key issues.
I think that the focus on workforce is tremendous, because we have to think about how do we employ our young people, keep them employed in careers that are relevant and make sense moving forward to the future, so we can continue to break the cycle of poverty and get people out of minimum wage jobs into careers where they can sustain themselves and their families. Yeah,
Christina, any big takeaways from the State of the State for you?
Well, I think it was incredibly important that the governor also doubled down once again on the goal of reducing infant mortality in Indiana. So looking at both sides of that life cycle, but we're the 8th worst in the nation, so our babies don't survive at a worse rate than any other state, certainly in the Midwest, but most states in the country. That's important. Now, they first took on this challenge in 2013, then 2015. This is a tall order to have some success by 2024, but such a noble cause.
Yeah. Larry, technology, again, back to some of the sector that's really driving the economy, a lot of focus on policy changes that will benefit potentially tech companies.
Yeah, I think two of the main areas, how software as a service is treated from a taxation standpoint. It's been very gray in terms of Indiana historically, and that needs to be addressed so it's clear. And then also how we approach opportunities with data centers. We have some real challenges right now with both tax structure and policy for data centers, and those are both important initiatives for the tech community, not only in Central Indiana, but statewide as we go forward.
Yeah, also pre-K and funding for expanded pre-K in the state of Indiana has been a big business issue around the state. This week we saw Indianapolis-based Early Learning awarded $200,000 plus to distribute to help to expand pre-K. Jennifer, as you look at that whole issue, and it seems to continue to gain momentum, how important in your view is that expansion of pre-K?
It's absolutely critical, and the fact that Lilly Endowment believed that Early Learning could be a leader in this and made that grant so they could redistribute is huge. But we need to have our children ready to learn. when they go to school, and their parents need to be adequately supported with that as well. And early learning does a really good job of thinking about looking at that holistically, because parents have to be able to support their children well if they're going to be in pre-K to be able to move forward and ready for school.
Do you sense that there's a growing acceptance when it comes to from a legislature standpoint and otherwise to the importance of expanding pre-K access?
I feel like we're moving forward. I don't think that we're accelerating at the speed that's really necessary, but I think we're moving forward, and every time we see a big win there, and then you open up the newspaper and you read a letter to the editor about why should I have to send my child to school before they're 7 and things like that. So I think that it's a hard-fought battle in our state.
I think there's a growing appreciation, too, for high-quality pre-K, that this isn't just babysitting or daycare. This is about learning. It's about ensuring that those forming brains from age 0 to 5 are set up and teed up for success, so that we do have generations of readers here who are going to be prepared to work in tomorrow's economy, where they're going to need to do math. They're going to need to do science and read, and that means starting young.
Yeah, and Larry, as we were talking earlier, too, the business connection there and why so many corporate players, not just here in Indianapolis, but Fort Wayne and Evansville and around the state, are supporting pre-K.
Yeah, I think it's one of the healthy things about this conversation has been it's changed to be about talent. And I think that having that as a part of the conversation, companies realize that they need to play a role in helping invest.
Yep. Also, sudden news this week that the big private phase of a massive expansion and development on the Purdue campus is about to begin. An $86 million Aspire at Discovery Park, again, a private development, but part of a much bigger project on the campus that really is transformational.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you've seen other universities that have done these partnerships with private developers and entities around their campuses or on their campuses. But at this scale, ultimately $1 billion project, that really speaks to, I think, the leadership Purdue's provided in a lot of different areas. And it'll be a tremendous benefit not only to the university, but that broader community up there as well.
I couldn't agree more. And innovation is a key pillar of the Purdue brand. And yes, I am a proud Purdue grad, but they are walking their talk. This isn't just about, selling kids on getting degrees. Yeah. They are actually living their brand and performing their values in a meaningful way that we can all touch and feel.
And what this could be as you look more broadly into the future and these connections and partnerships with companies like GE Aviation and Rolls-Royce and these private sector companies that are going on, and Infosys and others, obviously it's investment, it's jobs, but it's also from that educational experience pretty impressive.
It is, and it certainly creates that glide path to employment for grads and for those who are looking for internships or that first real experience. And that's something we have missed in higher ed too, that people get to actually live their major and graduate ready to roll.
Yep. 2 alcohol-related stories this week making some headlines in Indiana. The first, it's been an issue here for a long time in Indiana, Sunday alcohol sales. And it appears as though it seems to be on a track to being to getting the okay, moved through a Senate committee this week. But Sunday alcohol sales looks like it's going to happen.
Finally, that we're joining the rest of the world with this. I don't think that we're going to turn into the Wild Wild West if you can go to the grocery store on Sunday and buy alcohol. I don't think that it's going to do anything but just improve customer service for people, potential improvement in the economy for us as well, but just bringing us into today's market.
Just make it through, Larry. There's the other piece is expanded cold beer sales, which doesn't seem like perhaps that will make it.
Yeah, I think clearly the Sunday sales will get through. The cold beer, it's interesting, a longtime opponent has introduced a bill, so I think it will get a hearing, but I doubt it'll get through this time. But it is about us becoming, I think, in some ways more sophisticated. Utah changed all their alcohol laws a few years ago because it was an economic development issue. From the outside, people were concerned, and it impacted their ability to conduct economic development. So I think it'll be a good step forward.
I will say the General Assembly certainly seems to be feeling a tension between sin and business, whether it is, cold beer, Sunday sales, CBD oil, or gambling. Gambling's going to be a hot topic this year too.
Yes. Yep. Also, the other alcohol-related issue, cocktail maker relocating from Oregon. It was based in Oregon and is moving its headquarters to Indianapolis, the potential to create 50 jobs. As you look at that $9 million investment in that deal, Blue Marble Cocktails and Spirits is the company.
Yeah, I think in particular it speaks to how the state of Indiana has very strategically marketed to companies in high-tax states where there's some tied to the business owner or leadership back to Indiana. And this is a good example of that, and it also may lead to some production being done here as well.
Yep. Two other stories as we round out this week. One, Jennifer, you've been a very busy woman here these past number of months, attracting former First Lady Michelle Obama to an event the Women's Fund of Central Indiana is hosting in February at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. That's quite a coup, and the response, ticket-wise, not surprisingly, has been
The response ticket-wise has been unbelievable. We knew it was going to be great, but it has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm everybody's best friend right now.
Yeah, I'll bet. Give us quickly the kind of the overview of what she'll be talking about and how it'll play out.
Women's Fund and Mrs. Obama share a lot of common interest in women and girls. She was the spokeswoman for the Campaign to Change Direction, which teaches people the 5 signs of emotional wellness and what to recognize if you have a deficit in those areas. And we brought that to Indiana. I worked closely with the White House in 2014 and 15 on the pipeline from prison to poverty for teenage girls. So we'll be talking about that and talking about food insecurity, which is something that we're both interested in as well through her work with the garden and Our Next Farm. So I think it's going to be a really inspiring and exciting night for our community.
A lot of people looking forward to that. As we wrap up, only have about 20 seconds. But Oprah, speaking of women entrepreneurs, Oprah will be spotlighting a female entrepreneur, the Cake Bake Shop here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, so at the height of her fame, Oprah is shining her light on a woman Indiana entrepreneur, and it's very exciting. It's her time to shine, and I say, #boom, let's go.
Very great way to wrap up this week's edition of The Insiders. Christina Hale, Jennifer Pope Baker, Larry Gigrich, thanks very much.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.